Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and I appreciate that we were invited here to talk about Jaguars. I feel a little bit like now in the hot spot, being the best person to talk about. I'm not so the best person, but let's talk about Jaguars, of course. And to begin with, I would like to tell a little bit the story of Northern Jaguar Project so you can see in which context we have been working all this time. Many of you may know, well, if we talk about Jaguars, sorry, I forgot that one. Oh. Okay, if we talk about Jaguars, I mean, the species is distributed from the US down to Argentina. Recently, a researcher in Argentina said, I haven't checked that piece of information, that the jaguar went from the Colorado River in the US to the Rio Colorado in Argentina. I'm not so sure. I mean, I haven't checked it out, but it sounds good. It sounds catchy. But I mean, the jaguar has problems because of habitat destruction, hunting, because of the cattle predation conflict, and some kind also illegal market. And I would also just point out that in some books you can still find some descriptions about the northernmost subspecies as Panthera onca arizonensis, so it had the name of the state of Arizona, but most recent research has shown that the jaguars has no enough genetic differences between the populations to consider it as a different subspecies. So today the jaguar is considered one species all through the way from the US to Argentina. And we also consider it important, the jaguar, because it's a keystone species, it is an indicator species, it also works as an umbrella species, which means when you protect the jaguars, you're protecting the other species, and it's also a flagship species. All these criteria are important for us, and that's also the reason why it's only not working just for jaguars. It comprises the whole comprehensive approach to the environment at all. So, okay. Oh, that's sad if we are having problems with the picture. So this was the picture of the last female that was killed in the state of Arizona, which was the last one that was killed in 1963, although it is almost sure that it was not a native female. That puts the date longer back, because the last native female was killed in 1949. So since 1949 and 1963, whichever date you want to use, we haven't had female jaguars on the US that we know of course. And so that meant, again, sorry for that. I don't know what, okay. So this other picture was the very famous picture of Warner Glen. The one was taken in 1996, which was the first jaguar seen back after we knew there were no jaguars anymore in the US. And that triggered the research of Dr. Carlos Lopez, which is the one in the person on the picture, that they made to find out which was the source population for these jaguars that were coming back. Well, in 1996, there were two different jaguars seen in the US. One in the Peloncillo Mountains by Warner Glen, and one in the Baboquivari Mountains by Childs. And so this triggered this research. They were looking for those jaguars. Where do they come from? And that's written in the book Borderland Jaguars, where they tell the story, what they were finding out. And during that research, and that's a very important part for us in Sonora, they were the ones that were doing that research. They got this picture, which is the very first picture of a living jaguar in northern Mexico. Of course, ranchers they knew jaguars were present, they perhaps had encounters, but this is the very first, if I may say, biological proof of the presence of the jaguar in northern Mexico. This picture was taken in February 2000 in the place that we call City of Rocks, which was the other. We will see again that picture. And that's very important for us for the Northern Jaguar Reserve, because this research pointed out that the northernmost breeding population was between the towns of Zaguaripa and Guasabas in the state of Sonora in Mexico. So the two jaguars, the one of Warner Glen and Childs, that were seen in Mexico, were probably coming from that population in central Sonora. That's why we established there the Northern Jaguar Reserve. This is today, we started in the year 2003. Today it's 56,600 acres wide with different land purchases done over time. And this is located in where the rivers Aros and Bavispe come together, and that's considered the start of the Yaqui River in the state of Sonora. That's what you see here. This is the Aros River here to the east of the reserve, the Bavispe River coming from the north, and the Yaqui River starting down here. Okay, that's for example, a view on the Aros River, very famous for all the visitors and for us, because that's on a central road, this view. And always when you come to the same place, we take the pictures and then we realize we have already so many pictures of the same spot, but okay, that happens. It is important to point out that the Northern Jaguar Reserve is to protect the part of the northernmost breeding population of the jaguars. We have so far over 2,500 jaguar records in all these years. We have a relationship of genders of 46% females, which makes it good for breeding. And for example, in the year 2023, we had 16 different jaguars on our area. In the year 2024, it was 15, so it's not a good number like 2023. But anyhow, 16 jaguars where we have like 5, 6 residents and the others just coming through. And we have, of course, proven presence of females. This is a photo of Libellula, one of our most important females, and also proven evidence of breeding in the region. This is one of Libellula's cubs. But we also protect all the other species that are under this umbrella effect of the jaguar. You know, as we were saying, when you have to protect the environment, when you need the prey species for the existence of your focus species, that's this umbrella effect of the jaguar. And well, jaguars have a very big movements, about 800 square kilometers, and we will talk about some special movements later on. But this means that the reserve itself is not big enough to protect the population, or really to have a big success in the conservation of the jaguar. But on the other hand, the reserve, although we have no livestock on the reserve, we're still surrounded by cattle ranchers. And that's why we established in the year 2007 the Viviendo con Felinos program, which today comprises 21 different ranches that surround, one is a little bit an outlier, but this that are a continuation of the Northern Jaguar Reserve. Under this scheme, we have today 126,000 acres under protected management, if I may say it that way. So it is double the size of the reserve itself. In this program, the ranchers sign annual contracts to protect wildlife, not only our focus species, meaning not only the jaguars, they protect all wildlife species, they stop hunting, they have to keep sustainable management of their cattle, they continue to have cattle, but they cannot make substantial changes in habitat, and they cannot hunt other species that are present in the region. For that, we can expand our research area, and we place motion-triggered cameras on their land. And for each picture of one of the wild felines we get there on the ranch, they receive an award. It is, today we almost, more than 3/4 of the ranchers receive in-kind awards, but we're still managing a value for each picture, and it is 500 pesos for a bobcat, 1,000 pesos for a mountain lion, 1,500 pesos for an ocelot, and of course the jaguar has the big prize of 5,000 pesos for each jaguar that is seen on a picture. So if we have, like in this picture, you can see here is a little spot of the mother and the cub. So this picture was 2 jaguars in the award. And we also work with the community. I mean, they're right now very proud of their pictures. They're showing the pictures. They receive every month a printed version of their pictures, but also a digital version, because in modern times, many people have now social media, so they share it on WhatsApp, on Facebook, and the ranchers have a Facebook page where they also sometimes share some pictures. But we also support them in some other education, environmental education efforts, and also to increase their livelihood in a sustainable way, to have better soil and water management techniques so that their properties, the ranches, can be a little bit more productive than if just they leave water running through. And we support them to file cattle loss predation in case they have one. We do not pay compensation for predations. We help them gathering the necessary information and making the assessment so that they can file for the compensation at the National Cattle Loss Insurance Organization, which is something managed through all the country, not just for jaguar predation, for all kinds of predation and other causes for cattle loss. So we had them out gathering the information, like in this case, we have to gather the registration number, and we train them also to learn about the different predators, to identify them. And we also have activities in town to spread the message. This is a mural painted in the town of Zaguaripa, and we also work with the elementary schools in Zaguaripa. This guy here, this is Jaguardo, and this is a character that our environmental educators designed during the pandemic, because of course during the pandemic they could not meet, and so during the pandemic we were printing out booklets every month, and so Jaguardo was created as character in these booklets to show the kids what activities they should be doing and to give the message. And afterwards, it was created really as a puppet, and today we have the full family of felines. We have a mountain lion, we have a bobcat and an ocelot, and Jaguardo. Those are all the cousins that come together with the kids at some events. We have also the Eco Guardians Club in town, which means those are additional activities outside of school where the kids gather, have games, play, learn about conservation, and even at some point, let's say the better or the more consistent visitors of the Eco Guardians Club can come to the reserve and play junior guardians, meaning learning how a trail camera works, playing to be the predator in front of the camera, and then of course seeing the pictures of their effort and feeling they're part of the research on the reserve. Each year we also have, although interrupted because of the pandemic, but each year we have a celebration with the community in October where we show and we have an exhibition of the different pictures from the ranchers here, and they receive an award. The kids choose one award, which is the Kids' Choice Award, as we call it. And of course, there is another award that is given by a jury, selecting the best picture of each one of the 4 species that receive an award, again, as part of the Viviendo con Felinos awards the ranchers are receiving. This is the way how we have been able to keep an area where jaguars can hunt their wild prey species and where they can breed, continue breeding. We have been having almost every year, not consistently every year, but we have been still having cups from time to time on our records. Our last cups were in 2023, where we had 2 that year, and so we know that the population is somehow settling down and increasing in numbers. Of course, the formal assessment, that study has to be done and is going to be published hopefully soon, again in a scientific paper, but we see several signs that anecdotal show us that jaguars are growing in the region. So when we look at the Northern Jaguar Reserve, within the whole current situation of the jaguar population, and also with the corridors to the United States. So here we see the Northern Jaguar Reserve, specifically connected to both corridors that are considered are the possible ways where jaguars can come back to the United States. This map is taken from the Jaguar Recovery Plan from the year 2018. So this habitat connectivity might be just looking very theoretical, but we have several cases that show that this is possible. This is just grosso modo showing one jaguar that we knew of that was seen on the reserve and that was seen away from the reserve, which is almost on the border to the US. On the other hand, we have recently another, and this comes very good to this place because he's called Geronimo, no? But he came from northern Chihuahua to the reserve. He was first seen in Chihuahua and then on the reserve. So he was almost, again, almost from the border down to the reserve. But the most important case we had recently is El Jefe. El Jefe, you know, lived many years on the Santa Rita Mountains, close to Tucson, and then he was discovered in 2021 to the east of the reserve, not on the reserve, but to the east, to the east of it. So the whole distance was a movement that El Jefe did over several years, probably, but it is possible for a jaguar to make this big range travel. So this is an example how it is important to keep these corridors open and that it is possible to animals to move up to the United States if they're moving down to Mexico in the opposite direction. The connectivity is there. Although, of course, we have to do a lot to increase the connectivity, and there is still a lot of work to do. So this is again one of the pictures of Warner Glen in 1996. Since 1996, there have been 8, possibly 9 different jaguars seen in the United States, most probably only 8. So these are some of the spots where jaguars have been seen in Arizona. And it is important that since 2015, we have been having only 4 jaguars in this time. So the first of them is El Jefe, who, as I mentioned, had been seen or started to be seen in the region in the year 2011 or 2011. And then he continued until 2015 in the Santa Ritas and then disappeared and appeared in 2021. And this is the pictures where we got him. Where they got him. Profauna is a Mexican nonprofit. We were working together in a project, also with other organizations, with Wildlands Network and other organizations involved, and we were establishing a wider net to monitor wildlife, especially jaguars, in the state of Sonora. So they got this picture. And this picture you can see, I mean, I just put it this way because that's the way the camera took it. Oh, sorry. This one is the one I needed. So here you see the date. It was November 2021. But it took us a time till we discovered it. So we published this finding in 2022. And Carmina is our research coordinator. She has the whole database. She confirmed through these spots that it is El Jefe. You know, the spots of a jaguar are unique. And of course, on a database, you have, if possible, the whole fur of the animal or the whole pattern, if you have pictures of the whole animal. But sometimes you recognize an animal just for a very specific spot, perhaps on the head or on the shoulder. We had, for example, a female that was called Corazon because she had a perfect heart painted on the shoulder. But of course, some pictures or some cameras take another body part. So if possible, you have to complete the whole pattern of the animal. So in fact, Carmina ran this picture through her software, and the software said, this is El Jefe. And she said, no way. That's too far away. And she looked it personally, and she confirmed it personally. And it was that big surprise having El Jefe down in central Sonora. I mean, as he had been a so important jaguar in the US. This is the first of the 4 jaguars that I want to talk because of the 4 more recent jaguars. This is then El Jefe. The other one was Yoko, which appeared here in the year 2016, was recorded several times between 2016 and 2017, and then he disappeared. Unfortunately, he was found later that he was killed in the state of Sonora, back down there in the year 2018. But it is important to point out because El Jefe and Yoko are the only jaguars that have been confirmed having crossed from one side to the other. That we have a record in the US and we have a record in Mexico. We are almost certain that all the other jaguars that have only records in the US are coming from Mexico, but we have never confirmed a record from them in Mexico. Just to point this out, this is one of them, El Jefe is the other one that has records on both sides of the border. The third jaguar is Sombra. Sombra has been seen since the year 2016. There have been several records over all these years, and it is likely that he is still in US territory. I mean, as a friend of mine said recently, absence of records is not absence of the animal. And yeah, that's true. We all know that they are very elusive, so having a time without records doesn't mean that he has left the country. So he has been very close here in the Chiricahuas, and that's also a very good sign in terms of jaguar presence in the United States. And the last one is this one, is Oshat. Oshat was first published by a private person who had a trail camera picture from December 2023. And later it was published a picture that Sky Island Alliance had recorded from Oshat in November of that year, 2023, in the Whetstone Mountains. So we have been, well, there were those records. He was later called Oshat by a group of children of school and the community of the Tohono O'odham. And so this was the name, this is the name of the jaguar, and he had not been seen for a little bit over a year. And now recently there were new records of him that gathered by the University of Arizona. And so we are certain he is again here in the United States. We don't know if again or he has been all the time. Both things are interesting from a perspective of the survival of the jaguar. If he came back, it is a good reason, it is a good sign because he's coming back to a region he knows and he is comfortable to live in, if I may say it that way. He's not coming back to a place where he knows there is nothing to hunt, there is nothing he can live on. If he's coming back to a place he knows it is good to be here. If he has been staying all the time here, I mean, we know it from El Jefe, all the long time he stayed in the Santa Ritas, then it is also a good sign because it shows that the habitat can carry those animals. And have you heard of any case of cattle predation, of a pet incident, of a dog being killed by a jaguar in these months? Nothing at all. That's a good sign. We would not even know of these animals if it was not through these trail cameras. And that's a good sign because it shows that the animals are able to live here in Arizona without getting in conflict, without being noticed almost at all, if it wouldn't be by this modern technology. And now I'm messed up here. Okay, this is Oshat. This is the last jaguar. So I want to thank and also appreciate because most of the information that I presented right now was shared by the University of Arizona, their Wildcat Research Center, and they have been working since the year 2012, and they have been recording these 4 jaguars that I mentioned. They call it differently, but it's the same. Santa Rita jaguar is El Jefe, Huachuca jaguar is Yoko, Chiricahua jaguar is Sombra, And the Huachuca Whetstone South Arizona jaguar is Oshat. I'm just waiting for the picture. Ready? Okay, you're welcome. So, and this is again one of their pictures that they shared to me for this presentation. And I just want to publicly recognize that this is the result of their effort. They have been also gathering information of 75 other species. And the very important thing which they also have been doing is some DNA analysis, which shows that all jaguars in Arizona are genetically related to the ones in Sonora. So it is confirmed that it is the same population. Jaguars in Arizona are coming back from Sonora. That's the reason why it is important to conserve jaguars in Sonora, to have a breeding population, a strengthened population that can support any effort to bring them back to the United States. This is again one of their pictures. And again, just a shout out to the university and thanking for the collaboration. And yeah, I mean, I have to talk about the big elephant in the room. This is a little bit the major problem right now, because even though we have a critical habitat designated in the United States for jaguar conservation, which was designated in the year 2014, I personally, I'm quite disappointed in seeing that does not help if we're building a wall in the middle, right now in the San Rafael Valley, in the middle of that critical designated habitat. I have to be very careful, and I want to recognize I am a foreign citizen, I'm a Mexican citizen, so I don't want to say too much. But as an expert in wildlife, that's the part where I can say something. As an expert in wildlife, this is really going to throw away many of the efforts to bring back the jaguars in a more natural way into the United States. Of course, and if the wall is finished, the only other option after a closed wall will be an active reintroduction into the United States, which means much more expenses, much more problems, and always the permanent need for a permanent managed population. It is not the same if we keep somewhere open, and it doesn't need to happen every month or every year. If every so many years a jaguar walks down to Mexico or a jaguar comes back from Mexico, that is enough genetic exchange within one generation of jaguars. But if we close it, then we will have to do it ourselves, flying an animal over the border, moving animals, and creating a situation of a managed population much more difficult than if we allow the population by itself to reestablish and to recolonize the territory. Today, that gap is still open. I do think there should be still some hope that we can do something before it is closed. Once it is closed, the strategies for conserving the jaguar and for having jaguars in the US will have to change, and will change drastically. So, thank you very much. If we have some time for questions, of course, I'm available.